God is my ruler rather than man. And like the breeze blowing out in the field, I feel peace.
Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to Ramacro. In this video, I'll be giving you my thoughts on the October 2022 JW Broadcasting episode, which is hosted by governing body helper and suspected lizard creature disguised in a human skin suit, Robert Cyranko. Now, as with most of these videos, there is a lot to get through, so without further ado, let's roll the first clip.
For over 100 years, Jehovah's Organization has been producing books to help us teach people Bible truths. Do you remember when some of these study books were released? This Means Everlasting Life was released in 1950. The Truth That Leads to Eternal Life in 1968. You Can Live Forever in Paradise on Earth in 1982. And Knowledge That Leads to Everlasting Life in 1995. What did those titles have in common? They show that it's possible for a person to learn what Jehovah requires to live forever. And that's why we keep searching for people who are rightly disposed for everlasting life and who are willing to study the Bible with us. All of those books and several more that we published since then have been instrumental in helping people become believers in our wonderful hope for the future. In 2021, we added one more book to the list entitled Enjoy Life Forever, an Interactive Bible Course. This title adds another element, that it's possible not only to gain everlasting life, but also to learn how to enjoy life, even now.
Hopefully you've been enjoying Robert Cyranko's opening remarks in his talk, which has the theme,
See What Jehovah Has Done for Us.
One of the many things Jehovah has apparently done for us is produce over 100 years of books promising everlasting life. And not just everlasting life, but the imminent realization of everlasting life on a paradise earth landscaped over the devastation wrought by Armageddon. That's what he's really talking about here.
For over 100 years, Jehovah's Organization has been producing books to help us teach people Bible truths.
Over 100 years! He's almost proud of it, isn't he? You'd think he'd be embarrassed. He is, after all, not just a governing body helper. He is also, as it happens, at least on paper, the president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania. If you don't believe me, feel free to check on Wikipedia. So Robert Cyranko is speaking from quite some position of authority, even though he isn't himself a governing body member. And he's almost bragging about the fact that his organization has been producing this material, teaching people about the Bible, but really scaremongering people into fearing Armageddon, for over 100 years. Let's call it 140 plus years if we go all the way back to the time of Charles Taze Russell. How is that something to be proud of? And are you really just teaching people Bible truths? Is that really the aim of Jehovah's Witnesses? Is it just to teach people? We're going to see evidence in this JW Broadcasting episode that it's not just an educational work, which is the excuse this organization gives government authorities when it comes to claiming charitable status. The work of Jehovah's Witnesses is aimed at baptizing people, is aimed at recruiting people into the group. In other words, what they're offering is not just on a take-it-or-leave-it basis. They're not going to continue studying with someone if they see evidence that that person isn't serious about becoming one of them. I also hope you caught the manipulative language here.
That's why we keep searching for people who are rightly disposed for everlasting life and who are willing to study the Bible with us.
So in order to study with Jehovah's Witnesses and indeed become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to be rightly disposed. You need to have the right disposition. If you're not interested in studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, or if you become a Jehovah's Witness and later change your mind, probably it's because you're not rightly disposed. Probably it's because there's something wrong with you. You lack the right disposition. This is manipulation. It's one of many examples of gaslighting in Jehovah's Witness propaganda. And spoiler alert, Robert Saranko is going to come out with similar language later on in his talk. And then we have these remarks about the Enjoy Life Forever book.
In 2021, we added one more book to the list entitled Enjoy Life Forever, an interactive Bible course.
You added one more book to the list. One more. Is that so, Robert Saranko? This is apparently, folks, the last of the Bible study aids. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. And obviously, it's not going to be the last book that they release. But whoever's doing activism when they release the next book, maybe I'll still be doing it, who knows. I hope they drag the organization back to these words, because he was strongly suggesting there, at least in my opinion, that no more books will be needed after this one. But history indicates otherwise, because it's all a load of nonsense, because it's a doomsday group that's been jumping up and down about the apocalypse for 140 years and counting, there will always be a need to release new publications. And what I especially despise about this particular publication is its title, Enjoy Life Forever, an interactive Bible course. As I've said many times on this channel, there is nothing interactive about studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. Interactive implies that you are part of the process. So if Jehovah's Witnesses call on you with this book, and if it were truly interactive, you would be able to go through the book with them, and you would be able to decide what conclusions you draw. You would be able to decide what the Bible means to you and what your personal beliefs are, because it's interactive. That's what interactive means. But because it's not interactive, what you find is the opposite. The book, although it's designed so that you can watch videos and take part in question and answer sessions and that sort of thing and look at illustrations, that's not interactive in the truest sense of the word as far as I'm concerned. Everything in this book is designed to push you in one direction and one direction alone, and that's to embrace Jehovah's Witness beliefs and become a Jehovah's Witness.
We know that any success we enjoy is because of Jehovah's direction and blessing. And so, the theme of this presentation is, See What Jehovah Has Done for Us. The faithful and discreet slave has always taken very seriously Jesus' command recorded at Matthew 28:19. Go and make disciples of people of all the nations, baptizing them. And that's what our Bible study activity aims to accomplish. For decades, our method of conducting studies was to study printed material paragraph by paragraph. When answering the questions for the paragraph, some students would often just repeat what was stated in the book. However, it was hard to know whether the truth was really touching their heart. With Enjoy Life Forever, we're using a different method of teaching that generates candid expressions by the students in their own words. This is just what the governing body feels is needed to bring new ones to dedication and baptism during these urgent last days. We must help the student to see Jehovah as a real person and to develop a warm relationship with him, and encourage the student to get into a routine of regular Bible reading, prayer, and meeting attendance. Does Enjoy Life Forever provide what we need to accomplish all of that? It certainly does. The Scriptures are the focal point of each lesson, so the student is prompted to find answers in the Bible. The questions draw out the student's feelings about what he's learning. Early in the course, students are helped to appreciate what Jehovah is like, to feel his love for them, and to see how to draw close to him as their friend. The beautiful artwork and motivating videos have real emotional impact.
The beautiful artwork and motivating videos have real emotional impact. What have I been saying in rebuttal after rebuttal for as long as I can remember? Isn't that what this organization is all about? Manipulating people through emotional reasoning. If you can hook people with their emotions, things don't really need to make quite as much sense, do they? You don't really need to provide people with sound, logical reasoning if you've got them by their emotions. If you've managed to convince them to want it to be true, irrespective of whether it actually is true. And a great example of just one way that Jehovah's Witnesses persuade people to want something to be true is given here.
We must help the student to see Jehovah as a real person and to develop a warm relationship with him, and encourage the student to get into a routine of regular Bible reading, prayer, and meeting attendance.
We must help the student to see Jehovah as a real person, not we must convince our student using facts and logic that Jehovah is a real person. Just we must help the student to see Jehovah as a real person. Either Jehovah is real or he isn't. If Jehovah is real, then why do you need to help someone to see someone who is real as being real? Why don't you just show this real person to the person you're studying with, and then they'll know that it's a real person? The very fact that you need to word it that way, for me, indicates a degree of insecurity and also reveals the manipulation at the core of this group. Again, it's not about persuading, it's not about convincing people using facts and logic, it's about helping people to see things a certain way and encouraging them to do certain things, such as the routine of Bible reading, prayer, and meeting attendance. Apparently, when you're studying with someone as a Jehovah's Witness, you need to be encouraging them to get on this hamster wheel of doing these things that will keep them mentally occupied, stop them from having any space or time to really think about whether it's true or not. Because when all you're doing is just constantly praying, reading the Bible, attending meetings, maybe at some point you become an unbaptized publisher and you start preaching as well. The deeper you get into it, the more involved you get, the more privileges you can have, especially if you're a guy. Sorry, ladies, you don't get quite as many privileges in Jehovah's organization. The busier you can make someone, the harder it's going to be for them to see through the hoax, for them to see the fabric of this illusion starting to unravel when exposed to the slightest scrutiny. This is a group that is proud of how manipulative it is and openly tells its followers to encourage or manipulate people?
Early in the concept stage, we understood that there would be about 200 videos in this publication requiring thousands of hours of work. 8 brand new videos. Of the remaining videos, around 60 would need to be edited. Just as the 8 new videos were entering the production phase, COVID-19 hit, effectively halting video production around the world. This work stoppage continued until each branch could determine how they could film safely and still meet the deadline only 9 months away.
Due to the pandemic, photo sessions here at headquarters were completely stopped for 4 months. Now, as things progressed, we were able to resume photography, only adhering to strict protocols. For example, we had a family photograph themselves while being directed by the art department here.
So everything that a Bible study conductor has been trained to do: ask all the important questions, develop love for Jehovah in their Bible students, show videos, it's all built into the publication. So would the concept work with actual Bible students? To find out, we did in-house testing, and then at the same time, we sent out the lessons around the world to publishers, pioneers, missionaries, circuit overseers, and they used the lessons with actual Bible students. And we tested every lesson of the book this way. And then the responses that we got back were analyzed and we made further refinements. We had hundreds of team meetings, and we felt Jehovah's Holy Spirit equipping all of us after we opened a meeting with prayer.
When you collaborate, you get a better product. It's more direct, simpler, and easier to understand. Also, thinking ahead about potential translation problems and addressing them helped expedite translation in hundreds of languages.
I saw firsthand how Jehovah uses his organization to give us what we need at the right time, even with the pandemic. The results show me that Jehovah was in control of the project.
I feel that Jehovah helped us accomplish this job in a shorter amount of time and a quality that would have been very difficult even under normal circumstances. How amazing is Jehovah?
With the governing body wholeheartedly embracing the project and everyone on the production team willingly giving their all, we could see clear evidence of Jehovah's backing.
Here we go again with this nonsense about Jehovah's hand. I'm getting bored of debunking this. They just keep doing it, don't they? Here's a mundane, completely achievable task that we've set ourselves, and a deadline that we've set ourselves. And because we've accomplished this task, using all this volunteer labor and all of these resources within this deadline that we've set ourselves, therefore Jehovah was helping us. That's what the audience is being asked to believe here. Jehovah was in control of the project. Jehovah helped us accomplish this job in a shorter amount of time. We could see clear evidence of Jehovah's backing. Extraordinary claims, aren't they? But where is the extraordinary evidence? And as I've said repeatedly, and I'm bored of saying it now, what does it tell us about Jehovah if when a pandemic strikes that kills more than 20,000 of his witnesses, what does it tell us about him and his prioritization skills if the thing that he most wants to do and the work that he most wants to get done is not saving people's lives, is not easing the suffering and heartache of victims and their loved ones, but getting a book printed?
Now that we've seen what Jehovah has wonderfully done for us, what must we do for him?
Apparently salvation is a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours situation.
Remember, Jesus' command at Matthew 28:19 and 20 applies to all Christians. Regarding that command, note what the article Keep Busy During the Last of the Last Days states in the October 2019 issue of the Watchtower. As we conduct Bible studies, we have to try our best to make disciples, teaching them to observe all the things Jesus has commanded. We need to help people understand how important it is for them to take their stand for Jehovah and his kingdom. This means trying to motivate people to make the truth their own by applying what they learn, dedicating their life to Jehovah, and getting baptized. Only then will they survive Jehovah's Day. In most parts of the earth, people are not waiting in line for Bible studies. So we have to be proactive, trying our best to find people with whom we can start and conduct progressive studies, using our interactive Bible course. We want as many right-hearted persons as possible to become Jehovah's willing, loyal witnesses.
I spoke earlier in this rebuttal about the gaslighting in Jehovah's Witness propaganda, and here is yet another example.
We want as many right-hearted persons as possible to become Jehovah's willing, loyal witnesses.
We want as many right-hearted persons as possible. Let's not bother with the wrong-hearted persons, folks. We want the right-hearted persons to join us and be loyal to our organization. What are you saying about those who reject the Jehovah's Witness message when you use that language? What you're saying is that those who reject the Jehovah's Witness message are not right-hearted. In other words, they are wrong-hearted, or there is something wrong with them. This, again, is gaslighting. Gaslighting, and I realize it's a term that gets thrown around quite a lot and is often used without justification or by people who don't fully understand what it means. But gaslighting is a technique used by narcissists, typically, to manipulate people by making them doubt their judgment and doubt their grip on reality and doubt who they are as people even. And that's exactly what Robert Cyranko, governing body helper, is doing here. He's saying, if you don't agree with the organization I represent, you're not right-hearted. There's something wrong with your heart. You're, in essence, a bad person. So thank you, Robert Cyranko, for just doing my job for me again and putting your cards on the table and showing this sort of language just being freely used. And I especially enjoyed where you used the following quote.
This means trying to motivate people to make the truth their own by applying what they learn, dedicating their life to Jehovah, and getting baptized. Only then will they survive Jehovah's Day.
I've actually used this quote already multiple times on this channel to demonstrate the black and white doomsday ideology that is at the core of the Jehovah's Witness religion, because I think Jehovah's Witnesses, and when I say Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean ordinary rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses, have a tendency to fool themselves into believing a watered-down version of their faith. So when I come on this channel and I say Jehovah's Witnesses have a join us or die ideology, Jehovah's Witnesses crave the day when everyone who doesn't think as they do gets slaughtered, including men, women, and children, what's been happening is people have been coming on my channel who are Jehovah's Witnesses, because Jehovah's Witnesses watch these videos, believe it or not, and they've been saying, oh, these are apostate lies. We don't believe that. We believe that Jehovah will read people's hearts when Armageddon comes and he will decide who deserves to die. Well, that's all well and good if that's your personal interpretation of the Jehovah's Witness beliefs. But your problem is that those aren't the teachings of the organization. And this quote from the October 2019 Watchtower completely eviscerates this more palatable version of the dogma, because it says quite simply, if you want to survive Jehovah's Day, if you want to make it through Armageddon, you must be baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I don't think they can say it more plainly, to be honest. And they've been saying it, to be fair, throughout decades of their publications. It's just not their, how can I put it, principal selling point. They're never going to be upfront about this when, for example, they're calling at someone's home, or if someone comes up to their cart when they're standing in the street. Oh, would you like to join our group? It's the only way that you're going to survive an impending slaughter of billions. They're not going to lead with that one, are they? That's one of the many less palatable teachings that they keep concealed until you've bought into the ideology to the degree where you can start to stomach the more grisly stuff. But because this JW Broadcasting episode isn't designed for people who are being recruited on the doorstep, isn't designed for outsiders or potential converts, Robert Saranko can just say it like it is. And frankly, I'm grateful that he is giving this particular quote such prominence, because it sums up in just a few words how grotesque, how fear-mongering, how doomsday this group really is.
Do you remember when we first met Nita and Jade during the 2020 Always Rejoice convention? That series provided so many valuable lessons about what it takes to be an effective teacher. This month, we have another new dramatization. And in this episode, the story has come full circle, with Jade now conducting her first Bible study using Enjoy Life Forever.
So, what's your biggest question about life?
Why are people so obsessed with kicking round objects?
Well, there's that, but seriously, anything?
Why do people hate? If we're all God's children, what's the deal?
Good question, and one the Bible definitely answers. But you've a train to catch, so we'll stop there. But is Tuesday still good?
Assuming space-time hasn't collapsed into a singularity, I'm open.
This is actually something I often yearn for when watching Jehovah's Witness propaganda.
Okay, cool. So, on Tuesday, we'll carry on with... Hey!
So, how's the study going?
Brilliant. We're zipping right through the easy stuff.
So yes, we're back in the world of Jade and Anita. As I suggested may be the case, it seems that they are now doing a regular series of videos using these two characters from the Always Rejoice convention, characters that were used to show the indoctrination process, the means by which you turn someone into a Jehovah's Witness. As I said in the last month's rebuttal, I think with these two characters, the organization realizes they have hit on something good. They have found two actors who are actually quite compelling, which is rare for Jehovah's Witness propaganda. Usually the acting is terrible, but the two women playing Jade and Nita are actually good actors, I think. So they've decided to have them do regular dramatizations. And in this installment, we see things come full circle having been herself indoctrinated into the Jehovah's Witness religion by means of a Bible study, Jade is now conducting her own Bible study for the first time. Of course, it's not the first time we've seen Jade conducting a Bible study. Those of you who watched the Always Rejoice convention might remember a brief scene in the music video finale from that year's convention, in which Jade is portrayed in the future paradise conducting a Bible study with Little Bo Peep.
But to have your love forever is a real and lasting treasure. You alone will prove to me a joy eternally.
So yes, Little Bo Peep there, who's been resurrected into paradise. Goodness knows where her sheep are. Presumably they are chilling in a hot tub somewhere with some wolves. But anyway, it seems that by the time Armageddon comes, by the time all of the carnage and devastation has been landscaped into a global paradise, by that point Jade will have got her Bible study game tight to the point where she'll be able to explain everything to Little Bo Peep, using only the Silver Sword, the New World Translation. Apparently, Enjoy Life Forever and other Bible study aids will be surplus to requirements in the new system, apparently. And also, Nita will be able to wear trousers when she's assisting in the preaching work. All sorts of things will change, apparently, by the time Paradise comes. There's just the small matter of making it to Armageddon, of course. And so in the meantime, we're going to follow Jade's exploits as she perfects the art of making someone a Jehovah's Witness.
So, what I love about this prophecy is that it was written like 200 years before it actually happened, and every single detail came true. The men in charge just left the gates open. I mean, I would have fired anyone that got drunk and left the city gates open. Anyway, back to the prophecy.
So God is love, but he's going to kill billions. How's that work?
Oh, that's a good question. I wonder if that's going to get an answer.
Well, it'll make sense later. But for now, let's just focus on what I was talking about earlier. What's so nice about this chapter is that it's talking about prayer. Well, it's talking about how Jehovah helps us with prayer. And so it's really lovely because we can pray to someone that's basically all of this is evidence of the last days. So what would you say are the signs of the last days?
Wars, disasters, rude people. Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. That's fine. We can just, we'll just review it in the next lesson. It's fine. Do you want to just wrap it up now then?
Yeah.
Is everything okay?
Blissful. I'm gonna go.
All right. Bye, Gladys. And she just said one word. I don't know what to do.
Wow, thankfully I've never had a student like that.
Okay, she's really getting a hang of this irony thing, isn't she? But seriously, I really put myself into the study to try and make it live. And I get yes, no, maybe, or another insufferable off-topic question.
Maybe let's do a bit of research.
I knew you'd say that.
Well, that was very interesting. There's quite a bit to unpack there. Before I really launch into this, let's get a bit of housekeeping done. I feel we need to fact check something Jade said earlier in her botched Bible study.
What I love about this prophecy is that it was written like 200 years before it actually happened, and every single detail came true. The men in charge just left the gates open.
Thankfully, I don't have to go into this in too much detail because this is an organisation that just keeps repeating the same bad arguments again and again and again. I've already discussed the Isaiah prophecy, supposedly given 200 years before the fact, in Sushi number 96, thumbnail here, if Tibor is gracious, and we know he always is, apart from that one time. Did Isaiah predict Cyrus 200 years in advance? Spoiler alert, no, he didn't, or the book of Isaiah didn't. I explain why in the Sushi, but bottom line, in this particular part of the Bible study, and let's be fair, this is supposedly how you don't study the Bible with someone, but nonetheless, this is actually something that Jehovah's Witnesses say to people, so it merits an answer. In this particular part of the Bible study, Jade is using lies and deception to distort history and deceive her student. We're then treated to this golden moment in a later conversation.
Anyway, back to the prophecy.
So God is love, but he's going to kill billions. How's that work?
Well, it'll make sense later. But for now, let's just focus on what I was talking about earlier.
It will make sense later. Again, this is supposedly a botched Bible study. This is supposedly how not to study the Bible with someone. But what's interesting is the answer Jade gives here, it will make sense later, is surprisingly honest. Because that's essentially what you can expect to be told, or that's the gist of what you'll be told if you do raise this very pertinent question of how can a God of love kill billions at an impending Armageddon? Men, women, children, babies. Anyone who's not baptized, as we've already seen in a Watchtower quote given by Robert Siranko in this very same JW Broadcasting episode, everyone who's not a Jehovah's Witness deserves to die imminently at Armageddon, which will bring about the carnage of literally billions of people, because there are nearly 8 billion people on the planet, and only around 8.5 million Jehovah's Witnesses. How do we square the circle? How do we account for this being the plan if God is a God of love? Jade says it will all make sense later, and that's quite frankly how Jehovah's Witness indoctrination works. They hook you in with the palatable stuff, with the stuff about pandas and watermelons, with talk of peace and security, and all the warm, fuzzy, emotional reasoning. And then they wait until you have invested enough time and emotion that you want it to be true. You don't want to have wasted all of that time. So you're more open to this grotesque idea that anyone who doesn't agree with Jehovah's Witness beliefs deserves to die. And I found it fascinating when we catch up with Jade later in the apartment. She's talking to her 2 roommates and she's complaining about the woman she's studying with.
I really put myself into the study to try and make it live, and I get yes, no, maybe, or another insufferable off-topic question.
Another insufferable off-topic question. Is that referring to the question about the billions dying, the billions being slaughtered by a God of love? I think that's what she might be referring to. I think Jehovah's Witnesses are here being led to believe that this, again, incredibly pertinent question, very reasonable question, that frankly anyone studying with Jehovah's Witnesses or talking to Jehovah's Witnesses should be asking, is somehow an off-topic question, is a question that you shouldn't really be even considering.
October 2020 Watchtower. This box.
Exercise self-control by not talking too much. I guess I do need help.
But look, let the students see that you're excited about Bible truths.
Spot on there.
Make friends in the congregation. Oh, I could, or maybe we could do this. Look for signs that reveal her desire to serve Jehovah. Who's free on Friday?
Sorry, Jade, I'm busy.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay.
Jade? Jade? A tablet? No? Okay.
Hey.
Hey.
So, a surprise today. My usual lecture has been cancelled in favour of a discussion. And?
Jade, I'm not really the drum roll type. Oh, hey.
Hi, I'm Nita, one of Jade's roommates. And you're...
Gladys.
So, let's start with the question you hit me with last time, which is, why do we stay neutral when we see injustice?
I take it you've had your fair share? Me too. Although, not as bad as my mum and dad, from what they tell me.
But how will things ever change if we don't do something about it?
Let's see what the Bible has to say. In Jeremiah chapter 10 and verse 23. Could you read that?
I well know, O Jehovah, that man's way does not belong to him. It does not belong to man who is walking even to direct his step. But if that's true, then the future of the human race is looking quite bleak. Does that mean then that there's no hope for us? There's no point carrying on?
Good question.
Very good question.
Jade was excited to conduct a study, but she learned that making disciples takes more than just enthusiasm. It also requires patience and the self-control to talk less and listen more.
Yes, talk less, listen more, be patient, exercise self-control, be enthusiastic, and be willing to resort to deception, to giving people wrong information about the Bible and Bible prophecy. Oh, and don't forget to dismiss pertinent questions that your student may bring up during the conversation if you consider them to be off topic. Well, I guess there's one thing I can agree with Robert Siranko on when he's summarizing the latest installment in the Jade and Nita saga, and that's right at the beginning when he told us that things had come full circle. That perfectly describes what we've seen here. Jade started out by being manipulated by Nita in this incredibly underhanded and surreptitious Bible study process where all manner of tried and trusted manipulation techniques are brought to bear on the unsuspecting Bible student. These techniques, these mind control techniques, ended up working on Jade, and she is now using them on others.
Although I was pretty sure that my Bible student wasn't yet married, that is, legally married, she had never told me this directly, and I just didn't feel comfortable talking with her about it.
I had a Bible student who always prepared for and commented well at the study. I kept inviting her to the meeting, but she never went to a single one, and she never attended the memorial. I saw that she still had ties with some aspects of her religion.
The article brought out that in the first few weeks, as soon as the study becomes regular, it's important to start praying with the student. It used to take me a long time to start doing that.
The article helped me because it encouraged me to bring others with me on the study, and also not to be afraid to bring along those who are more experienced.
In the article, it was brought out how important it is not just for us to pray with our students, but also to help them to begin saying their own prayers as well. After that, when the study became regular, I'd pray before and after each session. And I encouraged each of them to also begin praying to Jehovah personally, so praying became a daily habit for them.
A circuit overseer's wife went with me on the study, and she asked my student if she was married. "Yes, I'm married. But are you legally married?" And then she responded, "No." So that really opened up an opportunity for me to help the student out with this situation.
That opened up an opportunity for me to help the student out with the situation? In what way? Who on earth do you think you are, prying into someone's private life in this way, making someone's romantic relationships your business, bringing along a circuit overseer's wife who is able to pry and ask questions that you rightly feel uncomfortable asking, and then based on the answers to those questions, because this person isn't living her life according to your expectations, you're taking it upon yourself to help the person in this area of not being legally married to someone. Thank you, Jehovah's Witness organization, for, again, doing my work for me. If you're watching this as someone who's just interested in what it's like to study with Jehovah's Witnesses, who wants to learn more about the organization, this is how prying and controlling Jehovah's Witnesses can be.
The article gave some suggestions about how we need to pay attention to the student's spiritual progress. It really should be consistent. We studied for a long time, a little over a year, and that's when I realized that it was time for me to stop and decide if I should discontinue the study. Then I put into practice the suggestion from the Watchtower of January 2020. I told her, "You really are someone who appreciates God's Word, and you're always regular with your studies. But like we just read about, there's some fruitage in your life that's missing." But she responded, "But I think it's all in Jehovah's time." So I said, "Jehovah has already invited you personally, so it's really up to you now." But she kept saying, "Well, to me, it'll happen in Jehovah's time." Unfortunately, it seemed better to discontinue the study because she showed that she didn't feel the need to make progress.
We're watching the October 2022 JW Broadcasting episode, and this is a regular segment, Lessons from the Watchtower. Apparently, the Watchtower almost has level pegging with the Bible when it comes to lessons that we can derive, lessons that we can put into practice. And so you have this regular segment that pops up in these episodes. And in this month's Lessons from the Watchtower, we're hearing from a number of regular pioneers. I don't know exactly which country they're in. I'm guessing it's a country in Latin America. But there are two particular stories that I am most interested in. I've already talked about Elizabeth. You'll maybe see a picture here if Tibor is gracious. We saw her earlier in this segment talking about how she was prying into her Bible students' private life and wanting to know details about whether she was legally married to her partner or not. And upon finding that her Bible student wasn't legally married, she was then taking it upon herself to help her Bible student with that situation. There's also this lady called Daniela who is talking here about having an unproductive Bible study. She's studying with someone who quite clearly isn't ready to break from her religion. Let's say it's Catholicism, who knows, but likely it is. Her Bible student isn't sufficiently convinced by what she's learning to become a Jehovah's Witness. And in those situations, Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged to end the Bible study. And what's interesting about this is that many times in Jehovah's Witness publications, they talk about how their Bible studies are, quote, no obligation. That's how they promote Bible studies to people. They say, oh, there's no obligation, there's no commitment. You just get to learn about the Bible, and what you do with that knowledge is entirely up to you. But we will study with you with no commitment and no obligation. In fact, here is a jw.org FAQ page. Am I expected to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses if I study the Bible with them? No, you are not obligated in any way. Millions enjoy our Bible study program without becoming Jehovah's Witnesses, and the footnote there reads, showing the scope of our study program, during 2021, we conducted 5.9 million Bible studies each month, many of these with several people at once, yet only 171,000 people were baptized as Jehovah's Witnesses that year. That's apparently proving how no obligation the Bible studies are. Anyway, continuing. The purpose of the program is to show you what the Bible teaches. What you decide to do with that knowledge is up to you. We recognize that faith is a personal matter. How astonishing. They just brazenly lie, don't they? When it's their website, when it's their FAQ page, they're telling people there's no obligation, there's no commitment. You get to go through our Bible study program, our 60-lesson Bible study program, because that's how many lessons there are in the Enjoy Life Forever book. You get to complete our 60-lesson program without any obligation at all. It's just to teach you about the Bible. But what did we hear towards the end of that segment?
Unfortunately, it seemed better to discontinue the study because she showed that she didn't feel the need to make progress.
She showed that she didn't feel the need to make progress. She showed that she wasn't willing to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and therefore the Bible study was discontinued. If that's not an expectation to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses if you study the Bible with them, I don't know what is.
Hola. Hi, I'm Armando. Welcome to Iron Sharpens Iron. We've all been there. We're out in the ministry, trying to start conversations with people. But for many of us, it's not that easy. Just the idea of talking to a stranger can be intimidating. Personally, I'm not someone who finds it easy to just walk up to a stranger and start a conversation. But with some effort and time, I've learned a few methods that have helped me to overcome my fears. Today, we're going to concentrate on just one of them, using questions to start and maintain a conversation. And perhaps by the time we're done, you'll realize, like I have, that it's not as difficult as it seems.
Hi there. We're asking our neighbors a question, and we'd like to know your opinion. Have you ever asked yourself what we need to do to have a happy family?
No, I'm not married.
Okay. Well, we have this brochure that talks about...
Okay, 3 things. First, the brother was nervous. When we're nervous, we make the person we're speaking with nervous too. Of course, it's difficult not to be nervous, but if we concentrate too much on how we feel, we can forget that what we want to do is simply start a conversation. There's no pressure. Just keep it casual. Second, yes, the brother did ask a question, but the question was irrelevant to the householder. It's usually better to ask something that will encourage the person to participate in the conversation, but will also help us to discern what interests them. Third, one of the biggest fears we have is, what if my question doesn't connect with them? This can throw us off. We feel like we have nowhere to go. It would have been better to have a flexible approach that would allow us to react according to what the person says.
We're watching Armando, a Jehovah's Witness circuit overseer, who's taking us through the latest installment of Iron Sharpens Iron. And he's teaching us all about how to use questions effectively. I say us. Clearly, this material isn't intended for just anyone. Clearly, this isn't designed just for anyone who's interested in Jehovah's Witnesses, anyone who wants to learn more about what this organization is and what the teachings are. This is really members-only stuff, isn't it? This is giving us a real insight into, again, the manipulation tactics deployed by Jehovah's Witnesses when they are trying to recruit into their group. Think about the title, using questions effectively, not asking questions effectively, but using questions effectively. How do we use questions? How do we exploit questions? This isn't about helping shy people have better conversations. This is about orchestrating fake conversations and crafting an opportunity to indoctrinate someone into the Jehovah's Witness belief system. Armando, apart from his incredibly irritating, slow delivery, and I'm sure it's not just a translation issue, clearly this has been dubbed over, Armando is speaking to us as though we're children, and I'm sure that comes across in, I'm assuming, the native Spanish, just as it does in the English. It's not just Armando's infantilizing manner that's irritating, and if you think about it, infantilization is part and parcel of indoctrination. It's one of the tactics Jehovah's Witnesses use. Treat someone as though they're a child, and they will psychologically grow more dependent on you for advice and for instruction. It's not just the infantilization. It's the fact that something as natural, something as inherent to human behavior as a conversation between two strangers is being exploited as a means of surreptitiously recruiting someone into a group. These questions are not intended to genuinely learn more about the individual, to genuinely learn about what their ideas are, what their concerns are. These questions are being used as a tool to unlock the person's mind and change their thinking, change their personality, effectively assimilating them into the Jehovah's Witness organization.
In this episode of My Teen Life, we'll hear from two young people who successfully resisted the temptations to have sex. How do they do it?
Well, every day in high school, my classmates would talk about sex.
They would just talk about, their boyfriends and girlfriends, what they did with them, over the weekend, what they're going to do.
They, of course, knew that I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses and that I wouldn't engage in premarital sex, but that did not stop them from pushing.
Guys would invade my personal space. Sometimes they would even try to, grab or touch me.
One day, a girl in class, she asked me to touch her inappropriately. Of course, I rejected her, but she even resorted to calling me names. She called me lame, and she said that I must be gay.
It seemed to be a game to them to try to break me and try to get me to do things with them. But the fact that I wouldn't give in, they thought it was fun or funny.
It got to the point where this became very physical. I had two classmates behind me that were pushing me, one classmate on each side of me, grabbing my arms and pushing me, trying to make me touch her. And I knew that it was time to get out of there.
We're watching the October 2022 episode of JW Broadcasting, and it's time for another installment of My Teen Life, the show that sort of mimics YouTuber vlogs. Essentially, we're seeing young Jehovah's Witnesses pretending to speak candidly when so obviously what they're saying is either scripted or what they're expected to say by the people behind the camera. The biggest problem I have so far is that this particular episode, episode 6, has the theme, how can I fight the pressure to have premarital sex? What's being described doesn't seem to fit this particular question.
Guys would invade my personal space. Sometimes they would even try to, grab or touch me.
That's not pressure to have premarital sex. That's sexual harassment. If the episode were titled, How Can I Deal with Sexual Harassment? That would be an appropriate story to tell. But how do you file this scenario under pressure to have premarital sex? If someone is experiencing sexual harassment, they need to be involving the authorities. In this case, they should be going straight to the principal's office and saying, this person in my class was invading my personal space and trying to grab or touch me. It's a serious matter. And yet, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, this is something where it's a religious thing. This is a situation where Bible verses need to be wheeled in. It's all about being a good person. You can deal with these scenarios where you're being sexually harassed so long as you're a good enough Christian.
Shortly before this incident, my grandmother actually prepared me. She would prepare Watchtower articles for me that talked about how to deal with temptation. Although those talks with her were super duper awkward, if I'm being honest, they really helped me to stay spiritually strong. and to resist the temptation.
My parents always told me to use far-sighted wisdom. Think about how that action would affect me in the future, affect my relationship with Jehovah, with my friends and my family. That definitely went through my head a lot during that time. All you need to do is trust in Jehovah, because if you trust in him, then everything is going to be okay.
Where do we even begin on this? I'm not even as incensed as I thought I would be about the whole sexual repression aspect of this, which is actually quite triggering as someone who's been raised in an organization that says you're not allowed to masturbate, you're not allowed to have sex before marriage, you're not allowed to be gay, you're not allowed to marry someone who isn't a Jehovah's Witness, you're not allowed to look at porn. All of these restrictions that change who you are as a person, that stifle a profound part of your psyche. This sexual repression is rampant in this particular episode of my teen life. But what infuriates me more than anything is that they have referred to at least one clear example of sexual harassment, where a girl has had her personal space invaded and people trying to grab, or someone trying to grab or touch her. There's no advice whatsoever to go to the authorities, to go to the school authorities or the police. Instead, somehow it's all about her. Somehow it's all about her being a better person. And what really incensed me was this part.
My parents always told me to use far-sighted wisdom. Think about how that action would affect me in the future, affect my relationship with Jehovah, with my friends and my family. That definitely went through my head a lot during that time.
I'm not surprised it went through your head a lot, love. What you're describing is the fear of shunning. We're talking about, again, sexual harassment. And apparently what this girl most urgently needs to think about is what the ramifications would be if there were any actions that would result in a loss of her relationship with Jehovah, with my friends and family. And flashing up on the screen, you see again that verse from Proverbs 22 verse 3, which actually was used in only the last installment of my teen life. Apparently, we can just bring this verse out for almost any episode. It just fits for almost any problem. The shrewd one sees the danger and conceals himself. That's the advice, apparently, for someone in a sexual harassment situation. Have you been shrewd? Have you seen the danger? Have you concealed yourself? Have you tried to hide somewhere? Have you checked out all the possible nooks and crannies where you could cower so that you don't get sexually harassed? Maybe I'm reading too much into things, but that's the message I'm receiving here. It's one thing to say no to premarital sex, which is the theme, apparently, of this installment of my teen life. How can I fight the pressure to have premarital sex? It's one thing to take a position on whether you want to have sex before marriage or not. It's another thing entirely if we're talking about sexual harassment, if we're talking about individuals forcing themselves on other individuals in a sexual way. And the advice that's given in this episode is absolutely disgraceful. If you're watching this as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, how can you defend this? An entire generation of Jehovah's Witness teens are here being told, if you get sexually harassed at school, somehow it's your fault, somehow you need to figure out a way of concealing yourself, and be careful just in case you end up doing something that could cause you to be shunned.
It takes courage to be different. For many of our brothers and sisters, that courage is being tested in a special way. They're preaching and making disciples in lands where the work is restricted or under ban. How do they muster the courage to keep on preaching despite opposition? That's the theme of this month's new music video.
I woke up this morning and dressed for the day. I prayed to Jehovah and went on my way. I was told not to preach, but I cannot bear. God is my ruler rather than man. And like the breeze blowing out in the field, I feel peace right. I know Jehovah's with me, so why should I fear? I know Jehovah's with me, so why should I fear? As I get back home and think about this day, that man on the bench had so much to say. So I pray that I'll see him again there soon. I know he'd feel better if he had the truth.
Sorry to interrupt this amazing music video, but I do need to add commentary, otherwise I'll get a copyright strike. I need to share my thoughts. And yeah, what we have here is yet another in a long line of cringeworthy original music videos produced by the organization. This is the sort of thing that witnesses are expected to listen to in their cars and maybe even sing along to.
You have a treasured place in Jehovah's house. He will help you out.
This one's not quite as upbeat though, is it? I think this one might be a bit more of a downer if this gets played on the car stereo. It's basically more persecution porn, isn't it? It's reminding Jehovah's Witnesses that they are this special group that is being disproportionately targeted for persecution around the world, even though that's just objectively not the case. It's true that Jehovah's Witnesses are persecuted in some countries. They often point to Russia as one example of a country where the preaching work is under ban. It's also not allowed to go to meetings or basically worship as a Jehovah's Witness. But when you compare the plight of Jehovah's Witnesses with the Yazidis, with the Rohingyas, with the Uyghur persecution in China, I'm sorry, it's just another in a long line of persecutions rather than something that we should be uniquely focused on. But that doesn't suit the narrative of the Jehovah's Witness organization. They need Jehovah's Witnesses to feel persecuted. So they've produced this music video. It's not the first time they've used manga-style animation, which I actually think is quite beautiful. It's a shame, really, because for me, the animation is far, far better than the lyrics. I mean, what is going on there? I woke up this morning and dressed for the day. You mean as opposed to not dressing for the day, as opposed to stepping out of the door naked? It's the kind of lyrics you'd come up with maybe as a teenager in your bedroom and think you've just written the next John Lennon Imagine, when in fact it's just utterly self-indulgent and boring. But apparently Jehovah's Witnesses should be impressed by this. But frankly, again, persecution porn element aside, I'm afraid the animation is not worthy of the lyrics. So I thought I'd treat you to just a little bit more of this month's music video. I Know Jehovah's With Me is the title. You might have been wondering what all those burning horses were all about. When I first saw it, I thought it might be a depiction of the Hezekiah slaughter, where the angel swoops down and kills, I think, 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. I don't think it's that. I think what we've just seen, and maybe Tibor can overlay, is a depiction of the events described in 2 Kings 6:15 onwards, where the prophet Elisha says, "Do not be afraid, for there are more who are with us than those who are with them." Then Elisha began to pray and say, "O Jehovah, open his eyes, please, that he may see." Immediately Jehovah opened the attendant's eyes, and he saw, and look, the mountainous region was full of horses and war chariots of fire all around Elisha. So I think that's what we've been shown there in manga form. Who knew? That was unexpected, I have to say. But the overall message, of course, is that, again, Jehovah's Witnesses are special. Yes, there may be bans. Yes, there may be persecution. But ultimately, Jehovah is the one pulling the strings. And ultimately, Jehovah will spring to the defense of his people, most notably in the Great Tribulation, when it seems that all is lost and it seems that Jehovah's Witnesses have all been rounded up and imprisoned and are about to be snuffed out. Jesus is going to ride to the rescue on his heavenly horse, accompanied by the 144,000 and many, many angels, and start slaughtering billions. Anyway, that's all I have for you. Those were my thoughts on the October 2022 JW Broadcasting episode. I hope you found my thoughts interesting. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lloyd Evans channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching.